Our final panel of the day is going to be led by my TEA colleague, Ashton Millett, and he will be facilitating a discussion from professionals around our state who will share information about strong partnerships and nurturing collaborations to improve school-based mental health and student outcomes. Please use the Q&A feature to pose questions for Ashton and the panelists so that they can answer them during the panel discussion portion of their session. Ashton?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rohana. So hello, everyone. My name is Ashton Millett, and I am a mental health program specialist with the Texas Education Agency and a part of the mental health and wellness team within the Supportive Schools Division. I will be your facilitator for this panel, and I'm excited for you all to learn about the great work our panelists are doing to build strong partnerships and improve mental health and student outcomes within their communities. Our panelists for this session are Kim Pruitt and Stephanie Dora from Region 6 Education Service Center and the Tri-County Local Mental Health Authority, Dr. Christopher Craddick and Dora Maria Ramirez from Serving Children and Adults in Need, or SCAN, and Ms. Rosina Silva from Laredo ISD, and Jessica Villacobo from ESC Region 1. So for this session, we'll start with panelists highlighting the work they are doing to build strong partnerships, followed by a panel discussion for a deeper dive into their lessons learned. Then we'll field some questions from the audience for a short Q&A portion. A lot like what Rohana said, to submit a question, you can use the Q&A function throughout the panel. This is your opportunity to pick their brains and learn about how to build and nurture strong partnerships in your own communities. So first, we'll start off with highlighting strong partnerships. We have Kim Pruitt from ESC Region 6 and Stephanie Dora from Tri-County Local Mental Health Authority based in ESC Region 6. Kim Pruitt is a mental and behavioral health specialist and has spent 30 plus years in education as a teacher, coach, and professional counselor. Stephanie Dora is the non-physician mental health professional, or NPMHP, at ESC 6. She is a licensed professional counselor, supervisor, and certified school counselor herself. I will now pass it over to Kim and Stephanie to share about their strong partnership.
All right. Is it good afternoon? It is good afternoon. I'm looking at my camera and I think I need a booster seat for my office chair. So Kim and I put together some slides just to really highlight our collaboration for this unique position that I'm in, and to talk about how we've kind of made that a successful collaboration. So Kim, you feel free to hop in there whenever you have something fun to say, okay?
Okay, may I say something to start with? First of all, I've had the opportunity to be a listener, an active listener for the last couple of days, and I have received some tremendous feedback from individuals within our region on the fantastic information that they have received. And I would like to also push that out and see and stress so much that's going on in our regions around us, extending on beyond Region 6.
Absolutely. So do we just need to say next slide? Is that how it's going to work?
Yes, you can just say next slide and we'll work it for you.
All right, so starting off with some successes that we have, like I said, our biggest success, I think, is our collaboration. So in my position, and if you're not familiar with House Bill 19, basically we work for the local mental health authority. So we're paid by the local mental health authority. That's who technically is our employer, but we live at and work at the Education Service Center. So that's been a unique dynamic. But I feel like we've had some really successful collaborations. So I've been able to collaborate with our special education department on some particular programs, road to recovery, and teaching educators diagnosis, Project Ed. I've done a lot of things with our school safety department on substance use awareness, suicide prevention, I've participated in all of their school safety conferences. But probably our biggest collaboration is with our counselor team, which includes Kim and her small and rural behavioral health grant. And one of the things that I've been really excited about my position and being able to work with Kim is being able to be flexible and provide so many of those trainings and resources for our small and rural schools that don't really have a budget for a lot of those things. So I feel like we've been able to work together to provide a lot of training, a lot of professional development for teachers and staff, and even a lot of unity presentations and resources for the schools and the community, and even some student presentations, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then I've also collaborated with the other school counselor specialists when they do certain presentations for counselors to provide a lot of counselor support. I think we've reached 63 districts at least. I've presented at 2 statewide conferences, 3 regional conferences. So I've also been able to collaborate with some other ESCs and some other NPMHPs. We work together quite a bit as well. One of our biggest accomplishments, I think, or successes has been our community resource symposium. So I was a school counselor, as was Kim, and kind of came up with this idea that it would have been really helpful to me to really know what was in my community, what was available, but not only that, to really put a face with a name and have a contact and feel like I could call someone if I needed something. So we started the Community Resource Symposium last year, and we had our second one this year. Over 20 organizations from across the region come, and they have 5 to 8 minutes to present on what they provide and how to get those services. And then I also always have a representative from every LMHA come so that they can answer specific questions for people in their area about child and youth services, how they can support their students, how to get those services, and really understand what's available. Because when I started this position, and even really when I started school counseling, I realized that a lot of schools aren't familiar with their LMHA or even know what an LMHA is. So that's been really successful, I think. There's been a lot of connections made. And then today, actually, we are with our regional crisis team doing some collaboration and training. So that's been another really successful outcome of our working together as well. I'm able to create connections with the LMHA, contribute resources, and there's been a definite increase in district use of our regional crisis team. A lot of that through Sherry Treadway's extremely hard work, and Kim and our other specialist, Jessica Casso, all working together to make sure that we are providing our districts those resources and empowering them also to have their own crisis response. Okay, next slide. These are just some statistics. So I looked at data, and the majority of these numbers are coming from small and rural schools. So about, well, a little over 1,600 students were educated about social media and mental health. Almost 3,000 students up to date educated on substance use awareness and safety. Over 850 students educated about suicide prevention. Almost 3,000 adults trained in youth mental health first aid. Really proud of that one. And that has come a lot through Kim's hard work, also helping me to push that out and really encourage schools to take part in that. 336 adults educated in social media and mental health, 67 adults trained in suicide prevention, 86 adults trained in trauma and IDD, and over 370 adults trained in trauma-informed education. So those are all some of the main things that I focus on. And I feel like there's been a lot of, now that people are becoming more aware that this is available, there's been a lot more interaction. So, okay, next slide. So I am kind of a data person. I do want to know that, what we're doing is actually making a difference, and I'm not imagining that. So I sent out a survey several months ago just to get some information about how my position was affecting districts. This was sent out to 10 districts, and I want to say at least 5 of them are Kim's small and rural schools that are part of her grant. So there were 76% that felt like I'm accessible, so that's good. 82% felt like they had more accessibility to their LMHA, ability to connect, find the appropriate departments, etc. 78% felt like they had a better understanding of their LMHA and how to utilize those services. But the one that I'm probably most proud of is 100% of the respondents said that they felt their relationship and their use of ESP6 services had improved or increased as a result of our collaboration. So I was really excited to see that me being here is helping the service center. So that was one of my goals, and I was excited about that. Sorry, Kim, go ahead.
I said, without a doubt, I can truly attest to that data without even having collected it. It's fantastic.
All right, next slide. I won't read all of these, but these were just some of the things that people mentioned. So comfortable reaching out for help. Information is shared through newsletter, emails, flyers, makes it simpler to find resources. Help with crisis situations, ongoing support. Again, more comfortable reaching out, and valuable contact for information. So that has been some of the feedback that we've gotten through our collaboration. Okay, next slide. So there were some challenges, like I mentioned. There are some differences. So I am paid by and supervised by the LMHA, but I office at the ESC. So like when everybody at the ESC gets a bonus, I don't get one. It's kind of sad. But there's some other things too. They have different hours. I'm expected to work 8 to 5 or beyond, and I think their hours are 8 to 4:30. I don't get Thanksgiving week off, and they do. So I kind of have to work out, like, do I come up to the office by myself, or do I work at home? Which I work that out with my supervisor. It's fine, but that creates an interesting dynamic. There has been some overlap. So some of my responsibilities and expectations overlap with other departments. For example, Title IV safety also covers substance abuse topics and suicide prevention. Also, because we're quasi-employees, there was a lot of questions about, do we get an ESP email? How do we get an employee number for printing or office supplies? Who buys the office supplies? Can we have access to the ESP programs? Do we attend staff meetings for ESP? How should we check in, or do we check in with someone at the ESP? So kind of working out some of those things have been some things that we've looked at. So next slide. Fortunately, we've come up with solutions to all of those things. So like I said, for the overlap, the biggest solution has just been to collaborate with other departments as much as possible when our subject matter overlaps. So I partner with my counseling team, with my SPED department, safety education department, just about anybody that contacts me and wants me to help with something, or if there's something that I'm doing that I think they might want to be a part of, then I contact them and say, hey, I have this idea for this session, something that you can do. One thing that I think has come up at most of the ESCs, for our NPMHP, funded through the HHSC general revenue. So our services are supposed to be free, but then we know that the ESC generates revenue from charging for some of their sessions. So kind of the way that we've worked around that is if there is something that's overlap, I collaborate with that department. And then if they need to charge for that, then they can still charge for that. I just can't charge if I'm by myself, if that makes sense. So that's kind of how we worked around that interesting dynamic. I did want to mention, I've been fortunate enough to have an ESP email, and I think that that has been hugely helpful. my Tri-County email goes to spam. And if someone from Tri-County emails my ESC email, it goes to spam. And so I know if I did not have that access to ESC email, then a lot of schools would never get my information. And even people at the ESC might not be able to communicate with me. So that's been hugely helpful. Communication has been key. So I didn't really realize until recently. I took my vacation to go to a softball tournament. And when I got back, realized that some people didn't know where I was. And so I have I shared my calendar with everyone at the ESC. So if somebody needs to know where I am at, because I am out in districts a lot or different places, or if I go on vacation, that's not in their system. So that they can see where I am. And I also put a chart on my door. I took Carmen San Diego's Where in the World Is, and I made it Where in the World Is Stephanie's Door. And I have a little pen that I put where I'm going to be. But probably the biggest solution that we have come to determine here at the ESC 6 is whenever we're discussing how to collaborate or responsibilities or what budget or any of those things, I'm fortunate to work with people that are looking for the greater good and what's going to serve the district and the students best. And having that common goal usually points us in the same direction. So we're able to figure out how to compromise and get what's best for the staff in this district. Okay, next slide. These are just some ideas that have been helpful to me. So if anybody is listening, like, how can we help our NCMHP? Face-to-face contacts have been the absolute best way for me to get interaction. It took a little bit. One of my other challenges was I started in the midst of the shutdown in 2020 where you couldn't meet anyone. But that's since obviously gotten better, and that has been the best way for me to get interaction. I do have a themed monthly newsletter, and I try to always provide ready-to-use courses. I usually reach about 600 people a month. I have a used car sales approach. So I will go to a staff meeting for 10 minutes. I will go for 30 minutes. I'll go for an hour. I'll go to a parent night for 15 minutes. I'll do an entire day of classroom style presentations. Whatever they ask me to do, if I can make it happen, I will do that. And what I've found is those 10-minute interactions often turn into, hey, can you come back for this? Parent night, I have learned that if the school will schedule it with something else that's important, then more parents come. So I've had a lot of parent nights where I've had only 2 people, but I went to one and they were having their elementary Christmas play. Every parent was there. And if they wanted to watch their little angel, then they had to listen to me first. And that was pretty tricky, but it was effective. And then the last thing that I think is just really important is the follow through. So no matter what resource I'm asked for or what problem, I try to make sure that I follow up with reliable resources and make sure that they have a specific name and number to call, or they know that they can reach out to me to make sure that if they have any problems that we're going to get them to the end result. So, okay. Next slide. That's it. Oh, no. So I just put this on here because I think that this collaboration and what the HB19, the NCMHP position can offer has such huge potential. And I've just been so fortunate to work with Kim and Sherry and Jessica and so many other wonderful people at the ESC that have seen that and really allowed me to work with them to create some really great opportunities for our district. So just huge potential for this position and this collaboration.
Nice. Thank you, Stephanie and Kim, for sharing. I definitely want to highlight one of the things that some of our friends in the chat have said about you being able to really take this time out to share some practical ideas on how to continue the collaboration. I also want to highlight one of the things that you mentioned as well, right? So part of one of the challenges was that schools aren't very familiar about the local mental health authorities, our LMHAs. But then in your data, right, through some of the work that you've been able to do, it was something around like 78% of the folks that you've been working with have improved their understanding about what an LMHA is and what they actually do. So you can definitely see that the work of the MHP is going forward, and you're doing a great job. Thank you. So our next presenters, Dr. Craddick and Dora Maria Ramirez from SCAN and Ms. Rosina Silva from Laredo ISD will share how SCAN and LISD have built and sustained a partnership for over 26 years. Yes, I said it, 26 years. Dr. Christopher Craddick is the Vice President of SCAN, which again stands for Serving Children and Adults in Need. Dr. Craddick oversees the Drug Prevention, Intervention, and Recovery Support Services programs at SCAN. Ms. Dora Ramirez is the Drug Prevention Services Coordinator at SCAN. She has been at SCAN for the past 26 years and currently oversees all the activities related to youth drug prevention. And Ms. Rosina Silva is the Director of Guidance and Counseling and the at-risk population with Laredo ISD. She has served in the district for 37 years and has held various roles, including teacher and counselor. She now oversees LISD's crisis intervention team, the social emotional learning, drug intervention program, and the implementation of guidance and counseling curriculum. Now you will hear from our panelists about the partnership between SCAN and Laredo ISD.
All right, thank you, Ashton. My name is Chris Craddick, and I am the Vice President at SCAN. I've been here for 24 years at the agency, and it's an honor to be selected to talk to you all today about the collaboration that we've had between the agency I work with, SCAN, and Laredo ISD. I just want to clarify, it's actually 32 years of collaboration, for a few years more. So we're going to talk about that. If you can go to the next slide, please, I'd appreciate it. All right. So Serving Children and Adults in Need, SCAN, is a nonprofit social service agency that actually has a 40-year history of providing a variety of services with a big emphasis on evidence-based prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery support services. And we work with children all the way through adults and then families as well. And I just want to mention that the acronym, we've kept that since our inception. So we actually started in 1982 as Stop Child Abuse and Neglect. And our focus was exclusively on preventing child abuse and neglect. And we had 4 employees total for the agency. And today we have over 200 full-time employees, over 35 different programs, and we provide services in 17 different counties in South Texas. And we are located in Laredo, Texas, and just a brief geography lesson for those of y'all that aren't familiar with South Texas. So we are in Laredo. Laredo's on the border with Mexico. Our sister city right across the Rio Grande River is Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. And our population is right at 256,000. And we're located in Webb County with a population of approximately 268,000 individuals. And we're 150 miles from San Antonio and Corpus Christi. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now, I see Rosina's here, so I'm going to pass it over to Rosina just to give a brief overview of LISD, and then I'll pick up the presentation again when she's finished.
Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a wonderful day. And thank you so much for inviting us to be a part of this panel. I'm so excited to be here. Well, LISD was established in 1882, 140 years ago. Don't I look good for working here 140 years? Just kidding. But yes, we've struggled with enrollment. It's usually about 25,000. However, right now, because of the returning back to COVID and stuff, children are hesitant. We're at about 20. We're trying to get to 21. We're at 20,995. So if you all have 5 kids out there, come in and enroll them, anybody. And we got our 20 elementary schools, 4 middle schools. We've got 3 comprehensive high schools, 4 our early college high schools, and of course, a P-Tech. So are kids under stress? You bet they are. There's a lot of expectations. And, we talk about this partnership that we've had for over 30 years, but I also call it a friendship because Dr. Chris and Dora Maria, they have been there for us in great times and in challenging times. So we are very fortunate to have them and as our partners, and they provide so many services
to all of our youths in needs and free of charge. And any questions, put it on the panel. It will be great to, I'll be happy to answer if you have any questions.
Thank you, Rosina. All right, if you can go to the next slide, please. And I'll pick it up again. So what we're going to do today, we're chronicling the 32 years. I'm going to try to make the history lesson interesting. It's not long, but what we've done is we've broken our presentation down into 3 different parts. So we have part 1, which we're going to call the past. Part 2 is the present, and then we have part 3, which is the future. And so I want to mention that since 1991, when we started working with the district, they've had 11 different superintendents during that time, and every single superintendent has been tremendously supportive of collaborating with their agency, and we're blessed. We feel blessed about that and very grateful. But I want to point out, I think that the heart of this presentation and the foundation of the relationship is that between the district and SCAN is that the support has been forged through relationships that have been built. And I want to say primarily these are ground up through the direct service staff. Administrators have worked together as well, but I think it's those relationships between the direct service individuals, whether it's teachers, counselors, our prevention specialists, intervention specialists, et cetera, working together to realize the power and the benefit of working together that's needed to meet the comprehensive needs of the students in the district. Because the schools alone can't do it, and a nonprofit alone can't do it, working in social services. We really do have to collaborate together. So when we look at part 1 in the 90s, I think if you just look at the names of the programs, you can tell that the main focus at that time was trying to implement drug, either prevention, intervention, or treatment services. However, the very first program that we had that we really collaborated on was the Services to At-Risk Youth Program. And this is a program funded by the Department of Family and Protective Services. And today it's known as the Family and Youth Success Program. And I want to mention that you'll see that these programs that are in bold are still in existence today. Okay, so I just want to mention, so it's fortunate we've been able to do that. So that program was actually the starting point of working together. This program targeted children that were living in families where a lot of family conflict was occurring. And if they had different types of problems related to being truant or delinquent behaviors or runaways. So the focus was to try to make sure that the students were in school and were doing well in the school, activities. Okay. And I also want to point out, though, that the programs that we're looking at, that we're highlighting, they're all foundational programs that were implemented in very close coordination with the district. And so this was either through formal or informal means that the LISD played a key role in helping us to get these programs developed and implemented. And that was through things like either just telling us that there was a tremendous need in the community that needed to be met to help the students. It was through them signing letters of support or commitment to help us apply for funding that we couldn't have applied for without that support, or actively serving on stakeholder work groups that they would help guide us once we got the monies and we got the program, and to make changes as needed. So that part has been critical, but also consistently making referrals to the different programs is what has allowed the programs to succeed, because without being able to work with students, the programs wouldn't be there. So we're very thankful for them for that. And every single program that's on the list that I'll talk about today, it was designed to fill a gap in services. There was some emerging problem or need, and we worked together, in some manner to try to make sure that we met those needs. So I mentioned the Services to At-Risk Youth Program. So in the 90s, starting in 93, we did a little backwards for most people. I think most places try to do it with prevention and move on to intervention and then treatment. But we actually did start with a drug intervention program and a drug outpatient program. And that they were designed for students in school because they were both called the Students Taking Action and Getting Drugs programs. And so those programs are very successful. The outpatient program is still in existence. But I think the program that best highlights the collaboration between the district and SCAN is what took place in 1996 with the Parents and Children Together program, or the PACT program. Now, this was a universal drug prevention program. This was it was a pilot program from the state with funding, where we were able to implement the PASS curriculum, which, if those of y'all that aren't familiar with that, it stands for Promoting Alternative Thinking Strategies. So we exclusively worked with LISD students in 2nd and 3rd grade in elementary schools. And what was unique about it was the teachers in the district taught all the lessons to the students every single week from, running from September all the way through May. But the SCAN staff were there as support. They provided them with all the materials they needed every week to teach those lessons. They also served as backups. So if the teachers were unavailable to teach a lesson for any reason, our staff were able to fill in. So basically, we always taught those lessons every week. And that program ran for close to 16 years. It was one of our really most successful. We were heartbroken when we couldn't fund it anymore. We just couldn't get funding for it. But our staff also provided parenting education to all of the parents of the students that were in that program. So, I mean, really working together, coordinating it, for over like 15 years, it was just an amazing example of how you can work together and make things work between school districts and the nonprofits like SCAN. And then finally, we ended the 90s by implementing a formal drug prevention coalition. This is the first time in our community that we actually pulled people from all the different sectors in the community to target drug prevention issues. And LISD, since the inception of that coalition, has been, pivotal in helping to be successful by many staff members serving as members in the coalition, but also helping to, design environmental strategies and to implement them to address emerging problems related to drug usage in the community. Okay, so then in the 2000s, what we did is that if you go back to the previous slide. Okay, so in the 2000s, at the bottom, in 2001, we noticed that we'd already been working on the drug prevention, intervention, treatment issues. We realized that there were some other some other problems in the community, and we needed to expand our services. And so I'm just highlighting, these are certainly not all of the programs that were implemented over the 32 years, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a flavor of the different types of programs that came about. So in 2001, we implemented a health risk prevention program for the first time for our agency. And the idea here was to kind of enhance what the students were already learning in their health education class at the schools. But there were some other issues that we felt really needed to be targeted and addressed a little bit more in their lives to help them just lead more healthy and productive lives. And we focused on things like healthy eating, exercise, how to deal with stress, and even oral hygiene was a big part of that program. So we're very proud of that. That was the first time we'd ever worked in health risk prevention. And then in 2004, we also implemented an advocacy skills training program specifically designed for individuals with developmental disabilities and their family members to teach them the skills that they needed to advocate for themselves, to access services that are available in the community, but I think more importantly, to try to get services brought into the community that weren't there. And then finally, in 2004, the second program, we implemented a combination program that focused on substance abuse and HIV prevention. And that was the first time that we'd ever provide HIV prevention services. And we worked with several students within the district on that program. Thank you. You can go to the next slide. Excuse me. So in 2005, this is where we started the process of providing mental health services to children in the community, but also in the district. So we implemented the Border Traumatic Stress Response Center in that year. And it's in bold, so that program is still in existence. We're very proud of that fact. This program was designed to work with children 3 to 17 years of age that had experienced some kind of traumatic event in their life or a major trauma, where they could come in and get trauma-informed counseling from specially trained counselors. So we've obviously, since that program is still in existence, we've been able to keep that going, and many students have been served through that program. And in that same year, we also implemented a fetal alcohol spectrum disorders prevention program, or FASD. The focus of this program was to prevent alcohol-exposed pregnancies. And I think this is an example also about the collaboration. So we knew that, we typically traditionally have a high incidence of teen pregnancies in our community. And we also have a high incidence of teens that use alcohol. And so, the discussions are taking place. Is there something out there that we can something to prevent the alcohol-exposed pregnancies in the community? And through our collaboration, we were able to get funding and implement that program and work with several students as well. And finally, the last two programs that I'm going to talk about quickly. In 2007, we were able to kind of add on to our drug prevention, intervention, and treatment continuum by, for the first time, offering recovery support services to youth and adults. This program no longer exists, but SCAN still does have youth recovery support services, a program that works with students at the district. And what was unique about this program, and it's the same with the program that we have today, the services are being provided by adults that are in recovery. They've been in long-term recovery themselves, and they're there to provide guidance and help the students because they've been there. And so that really seems to be a very successful and powerful program of working with the youth. And finally, the last example about trying to address emerging needs and problems is that we began to notice, SCAN and the district, that more and more we were seeing that children were having either one or both parents that were incarcerated. And at that time, a big part of that was due to the drug-related issues. But we said, is there something that could be done to try to, especially when they don't have a parent around and both parents are gone, is there something that we can do to try to provide some nurturing, bonding activities for the individuals? And we said, well, let's look around and see what we can do. We were able to find federal funding, and then we utilized specially trained adult mentors to provide those services to youth to help them develop in a healthy manner. Okay. So that ends part one. I'm going to turn it over. The more exciting part, I think, to my co-presenter, Dora, Ramirez, and to Rosina, who can talk a little bit more about their collaboration directly, because they started working together in 1996. I believe that's right when you all first met each other. So they can elaborate on how they've been able to continue that relationship. And you'll see on the previous slide, please.
All right, well, my turn. Well, thank you, Dr. Crack. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you for that. And I previously mentioned, I am Dora Ramirez, and I want to thank you for the opportunity to present. But before I begin, I want everyone to know that I was born, raised here in Laredo, attended the local schools here in Laredo, and I am a proud product of Laredo ISD. And so I have been with the agency, like Dr. Craddick says, since 1996. This is when I met Ms. Rosina Silva, where I started providing direct services as a prevention specialist with the Standard Intervention Program, you know, before I became a program director. And it's funny when you see the timeline, I'm thinking, oh, I participated in that program. I did that one. I did that one. I helped with this one. So it's interesting, the collaboration that we've had. But the collaboration between Laredo ISD and Ms. Rosina Silva, I feel, began when we met since 1996, when she was a counselor at one of the middle schools, which is Cigarroa Middle School. Now, as we know, she is the director of guidance and counseling at the at-risk population, and we closely work together in many projects. So I remember presenting this prevention program, and she allowed me to work with the youth and the parents. And every semester, consistently, I remember going back to the same school 2 or 3 days a week, and sometimes beginning at the beginning of the period and leaving at the end of the last period. And this is a funny story, because several times we had students and staff confused me as a school staff member because I spent so much time at that school. So Ms. Silva and other counselors are what we call the true champions, because, you know, it's the community. It's sometimes you have to try out things. People need to know who you are. But when people recommend you from the inside out, this is where the doors are open to our local middle and high school. So Rosina, thank you so much. I call you my true champion. And by her recommending us to other counselors, other schools, we were providing direct services to the elementary, middle, and high school. And so the collaboration, so what is the key, in my opinion, and as an outsider, you have to be consistent. You have to connect with the counselors and the school staff. You have to be available. You have to be ready whenever possible. If the school calls you for a referral, for crisis, for resources, for presentations, whether it be for the youth or the adults, either during school time or after school time, on a weekend to provide parenting, you have to answer that call. So it's constantly, we also constantly have to be reaching out to the community. We present our program yearly, ongoing, about program services, because we're always adding. We look in gaps in services, and when we receive new programs, we have to present it to the community. So this is something that's ongoing. So I think the collaboration is you have to be ready and available, and this is how the schools know that they can count on your agency. So that's what I feel, that's a great collaboration. So for my part too, 2011 to 2022, SCAN has been providing services to the LISD, Laredo ISD students and their parents, guardians, through various evidence-based programs. And this includes our drug prevention program, where most of the services are school-based at the various elementary, middle, and high schools. Now, 2 of the programs that I oversee are receive either the referrals directly from the counselors or are self-referred. But before any services are provided, all our programs require parent consent form, which is something that Laredo ISD has always been very appreciative because the parents are knowing what their children are getting. So this drug prevention programs I oversee, they include the curriculum-based support group. We provide alcohol, tobacco, and other drug presentations. We also do positive alternative presentations and referrals as needed. One of the, I feel it's very positive for us is the fact that we're bilingual. And so we have many parents that are not English speaking, so we're able to do our presentations in Spanish. So we try to do the outreach. We feel we're very lucky to be able to do that. Now, Laredo ISD, how are they collaborating in any of our program services? Is they felt that it was best for us to provide services during the students' health education classes, because most of the students have to go through the health ed, and this won't interfere with their basic topics, right? Just the basic subjects. So that worked out wonderfully. Now, our outpatient treatment program, they provide services, at non-traditional schools. We have one in particular, it's called the Valdez High School. And we currently have one of our licensed chemical dependency counselor stationed at the school full-time. And Laredo ISD provided the office space. And so what happens when we have this collaboration, this counselor is available to do immediate crisis counseling resources 5 days out of the week. They don't have to be calling us, scheduling an appointment. Something happens, they're right there. So this is where LISD saw that the gaps were there, and so we were able to collaborate. Now, we'd also have our youth recovery support services program, which kind of like what Dr. Craddick mentioned, we had it. This is a peer-to-peer. It's a peer-to-peer support services to individuals between the ages of 13 to 21. The services are usually provided after school, again, not to interfere with many of the things that they're going through. And we do case management. We also do problem identification, and we do social support for recovery. We have a mental health services program. Again, this provides it to the youth and the adult mental health first aid. It's done to the community. It's done, it's offered monthly on a monthly basis. And then the runaway and homeless youth program, they receive referrals primarily from the school's counselors. It can be from any truant officer or any school official. They're the ones who identify the students at risk, because the schools are at school majority of the time. So they know if they're being late, something's going up. They know they're they miss school a lot. So they know who are those that probably are at the risk of being homeless or at runaway. And so finally, we have the child abuse prevention program, which includes our Project Hopes. And the Project Hopes provides parenting education to parents and guardians for the prevention of child abuse. And many of the schools are the ones that offer most of the referrals for those individuals identified at risk. So this concludes my presentation. But before,
if I may,
yes, I was going to go ahead
if-
and pass it to you, Ms. Silva. So I want to thank you for giving me the time, but I definitely want to make sure that I come across with the collaboration to our agency with LISD has been wonderful, and we want to continue. And now I'm going to ask Ms. Silva if she could please add a few words to what we have just covered. Ms. Silva, please.
Well, on behalf of Laredo ISD, we are eternally grateful. Last year, sadly, Dora mentioned we have a non-traditional high school, and the youth that, most of the youth that attend that campus have had a drug issues in the past. Last year, sadly, we lost our substance abuse coordinator, who was an employee of Laredo ISD. Well, as all of the state can imagine, with budget crunches, we were not able to replace that position. But because of that partnership with SCAN, we continue to offer these services. They have an office there. The employee counselor reports there on a daily basis. She's got her own conference room, and then of course their private office. So this is something, with building these relationships that we have for the past 30 plus years. When it's time for a need or time, we have been there for each other. I completely believe that. SCAN does numerous studies. They, with the permission of our children's parents, they participate. And that, I think, helps us know what about our population, what they are going through. And then in addition, it helps SCAN apply for numerous grants, which they have been awarded, praise God, throughout these 3 decades. And so I just wanted to add that, how appreciative we are.
All right, thank you so much for saying that, Dora. Okay, we'll go to the last slide. I just have 2 more bullet points and then we'll move on. So kind of like, where do we go from here for part 3, 2023 and beyond? So I will mention just recently, SCAN and LISD worked together to complete a funding application for a SAMSA Project Aware grant. We're hoping to hear in December or January at the latest if we're going to receive funding for that. That if we are funded, our fingers are crossed, we'd be able to implement a sustainable infrastructure for school-based mental health services, and this would provide services to be able to, for all the students from K through 12 within the district. That's the plan. So it was a very comprehensive design, and we should know something soon. So, and then the last thing I'll say that, I mean, obviously we've been doing this for the past 32 years, so I'm confident that it'll continue, that we're going to continue to look for trends in behavioral health that emerge in the community. And as they do, we'll continue to work closely, collaborate to try to get the funding to implement evidence-based services to meet the needs for the students in the district and the families, as well as other students in the community. And that's our presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you all for sharing all of that. Some of the theme, of course, like one of the big themes of our ABC Summit has been about collaboration, right? And one of the things that some of our previous presenters and panelists have shown is that schools can't necessarily do it all by themselves. And the partnership between SCAN, Laredo ISD, and you'll soon hear from ESC Region 1 shows that schools don't have to do it by themselves because of partnerships like that. Another thing as well, throughout this presentation, I'm gonna get you right this time, Dr. Craddick. Throughout that 32 years of partnership, you all have actually weathered storms, right? So not only COVID, but also changes in leadership and changes in staff. And that actually shows how important it is to build relationships, or as Ms. Rosina mentioned, build friendships, right? And it shows how important it is to highlight trust and to be able to maintain and actually be intentional about those relationships, so you can be like SCAN and Laredo ISD and have partnerships last throughout decades as well. So again, thank you all. So our final presenter for this session is Jessica Villacobo, the lead for school health and counseling from ESC Region 1. Within this role, she provides ongoing professional development for school staff throughout the region. And as a member of the Hidalgo County Mental Health Coalition, she is continuously broadening partnerships throughout the community. Now, I will pass it over to Jessica to share about how ESC 1 is working with districts in the region to support student mental and behavioral health.
Thank you, Ashton, for the introduction, and thank you for having me here. I do want to share partnerships that we currently support here within our ESC to provide tier 3 supports for our region, our LEAs. So we can go ahead and move on to the next slide. You can go ahead and move on to the next slide. So I just want to give you a visual representation of what our ESC geographical representation looks like. We do have an 8-county jurisdiction, and I do want to give you a visual as to where we are located and where Laredo ISD is located. So in order for us to reach, or for them to reach us, it's close. It's a 3-hour drive, or approximately a 3-hour drive. So, you know, when they cannot come to us, we bring the resources to them. So the next slide will demonstrate some of the initiatives. Next slide, please. So again, this is one of the initiatives within my capacity. I also oversee the McKinney-Vento grant. And so when this is not feasible for the Laredo ISD school districts to bring the students to us, as it is a close to a 3-hour drive, or they have a school bus driver shortage. We take the initiatives to them. And this is one of the initiatives that we had this year. And, you know, the gentleman at the bottom in the pink shirt is their school superintendent, who was also very supportive of our initiative, which was our STEM camp for our students. Next slide, please.
Sorry, is it not showing up for you, Jessica?
I'm not showing, I just see the same site. So there is the STEM camp flyer. That was the flyer with the initiative that we did for United ISD, which is another school district located in Laredo. And our ESC centers funded the initiative for the students. They had the lunch, the breakfast, they had a STEM kit, and they had a day full of STEM related activities. Next slide, please. And basically, in order for me to gauge an understanding as to what the districts or the LEAs are wanting to training in, I go ahead and I conduct a needs assessment in the form of a survey. And this is where I can go ahead and plan and, you know, and provide what they are asking for. Again, and for instance, in the upper left-hand corner, this was the questionnaire, the survey that I disseminated to the lead regional counselors. And I asked them, what is it that they're requesting more training in or professional development? And as you can see, they want more training in depression and anxiety in adolescents. So I know that that's one of my targets. And the second highest interest in professional development is a youth mental health first aid training. And of course, I also ask, you know, what is the method of presentation you like this offer to you? And you can see that they're wanting an in-person mode. Next slide, please. In our consultation, collaboration, and facilitation component. So, you know, I do invite our local mental health agency to my workshops and trainings. And they do provide information to our staff that are in attendance. And, you know, these are some of the pictures that show for the Laredo area, we have our region behavioral health, mental health agency. And for our other counties, as I said, we have several counties, that'll be Tropical Texas Behavioral Health. Next slide, please. And then these are some of the professional development opportunities that I brought to my staff. Of course, the multi-tiered systems of support, non-suicidal self-injury. And again, we collaborate with our local institutions of higher education, you know, to make sure that we bring them the best and most relevant in the topics that they're requesting training in. Please. One of the showcase or something that I want to showcase in my presentation is that, you know, the initiative that we had an LEA who within their campus, they had a student who had a mental health crisis. So in order to prevent a contagion, we reached out to our local mental health agency, and we were able to conduct or set up for students who are at risk to have mental health academies for the students. And, you know, this was a very successful initiative, and you know, the school district was very open and you know, welcoming to us to conduct sessions for the students. Next slide, please. Of course, I also am part of the local county mental health coalition, and you know, I'm a very big supporter and just forming collaboration, with agencies that impact and that, form policy as to, what will impact our mental health, especially within our students. So I make sure I, join whatever organization that's going to make these meaningful decisions that will impact our schools and their students. And then these are professional development opportunities that we had this year. So we had, again, the youth mental health first aid training that we offered at the ESE in collaboration with our local mental health agency. We also collaborated with Laura Gold, who's with the Office of Texas Health and Human Services, Office of Mental Health. So she conducted a session or a webinar on suicide prevention in schools. We reached out to Region 15 ESC. We had for psychological first aid for schools webinar. And we also reached out to our coastal Galveston, actually it was our Gulf Coast Center for or Behavioral Health Center. And they also conducted a webinar on responses after a crisis. So as you can see, we're not just forming collaboration and consultation within our area. We're reaching out to all areas of the state. Of course, the reason that we do this is because funding is a challenge, but we've been so grateful. I'm so grateful that the individuals who have helped me put these trainings for our staff have done this at no cost. So, I'm very appreciative of them. And of course, for Bullying Prevention Awareness Month, we had also a presentation or a webinar. So, we're just reaching out and bringing, again, the most relevant professional development and tier 3 supports for our region. And again, I mean, we just don't do that. We make sure we assess and we do a needs assessment within our region. And, we bring the best to our staff as it will be impacting our students. And again, we don't leave our staff behind. This year, we did bring how to use emotional intelligence to thrive in the classroom and beyond for our staff. And, so we're just bringing in, we're not leaving our staff behind. We're keeping them in mind as they are the ones servicing our students in the school setting. So again, sometimes we do have, a fee that impacts our what we bring to our region. But, for the most part, we're looking at opportunities where there's no cost and that, we can bring it to, free of charge to the schools. And of course, we're looking forward to our future partnership with Laredo ISD. We also were in the partnership with the SAMSA application for the AWARE grant. So again, we should be finding that out in a couple of weeks. So we're keeping our fingers crossed as that will just increase capacity and bring much more opportunities for our region and most important for our students. Thank you all for your attention and I'm happy to share again. Reach out to me if you have any questions, if you want more information about our partnerships and our initiatives. And thank you, Ashton and Rohana, Julie, for all of your support and always being there and willing to guide us. And again, I know when we were submitting the application for that Project Aware grant, you were up late at night making sure that we got those letters in and, those partnership letters. So thank you for your support. And we're just hoping and praying for the best in regards to that grant.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Jessica, for presenting and also showing our small but mighty team a little bit of love. Definitely appreciate that. One of the things that you mentioned, as well as Stephanie and our partners at SCAN, is that you all are really being very intentional about meeting schools, districts where they are, right? Like you're really being focusing in on what are the needs and filling in those gaps. And not only doing that, but also using data to inform those decisions. And I think you all are doing a phenomenal job. So once again, I want to appreciate you all for highlighting the work that you do and have done to develop strong partnerships. We will transition to the discussion portion of the panel. And I want to remind the audience again that you are able to ask our panelists questions and pick their brains by using the Q&A function below. So again, we'll start our panel discussion component of our session now, and feel free to share your questions in the using the Q&A function below as well. So we'll actually start off our first question with Kim over at ESC Region 6. You all kind of touched on it a little bit in terms of some of the trainings that you do as well. But I also want to focus in a little bit more in terms of what role does the ESC 6 play in partnering with LEAs to support the Tier 3, that intensive intervention needs of students within the region?
So the best way to answer this is to reach out to colleagues. And so I pose this question to someone who we work closely with within our region or within ESC 6. And this is paraphrasing in a sense, but our partnerships involves training, coaching teachers and staff, consulting on specific student needs, and or providing tools for the interventions being offered at that level by different districts. Our partnership centers on serving the specific needs of the district that supports our student population or needing that seek our support. And I go back to something that Dr. Kearney from Region 4 said yesterday. It's about collaborating and partnering and finding resources for districts so that they can focus on Tier 3 supports within. So that is our greatest success, I believe, is really providing that collaboration and that partnering.
Nice. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I saw Stephanie over there kind of nodding her head a little bit. So you can feel free to add on to that. But I also want to ask you, Stephanie, a question really quickly in terms of going in a little bit more in depth about those partnerships and collaboration. So in your role as NPMHP, how have you been able to, of course, in your own way, foster those partnerships and collaborations? And if you have even an example of that, that would be awesome to share as well.
So one of the things that I have focused on, like I mentioned, was really getting information out there about the LMHA and what they can do, what services are offered, how to get those things. So I've actually provided one of my most requested trainings has been on access to crisis services. And so I've done a lot of trainings for school districts on what that process looks like on the back end so that they can understand better how to guide their families and how to access those crisis services when they're needed. So I think that's been helpful. And then on top of that, I always make sure they have my information and I let them know if you have any issues to call me, and then I can do some back end work, like where are we misunderstanding, who do they need to talk to, or where did we get our wires crossed? Because the answer to any student should never be, we can't help you. That's not going to be the answer. So if they're coming across that, then somewhere we got lost. So that I think has been really helpful. And then I have also been able to do a lot of professional development for staff on, again, kind of what a crisis is, what it isn't. Also on trauma, that has been, that's a huge passion of mine, is helping them understand. And also youth mental health first aid. I've really tried to push that out to teachers so that they can be empowered to help with mental health, because I always point out that usually a school counselor is responsible for around 500 students in most cases. And if they're the only person that can help with mental health, then that's a tough day. And there's a whole lot of kids that aren't getting any support. So how that helps with Tier 3, I think, is some of those Tier 1 interventions, those universal interventions, frees up our other mental health professionals to be able to focus on those tier 3 kids. And then when it comes to being able to refer out or needing more intensive intervention, then I've been able to help them identify those resources and help them connect with those resources, whether that be the LMHA or someone else in the community or a training that they want or a program that they need. I feel like I got really excited there. Did I answer your question?
No, you answered it. You answered it perfectly, and I definitely appreciate that. Have you gotten good reception from some of your folks that you've trained on, or been able to like help them get trained on mental health first aid, like teachers, campuses? Have you gotten good reception from folks about that?
Yes, we've been able to train some entire districts. And a lot of times I am one of the trainers, and from the classes that I've done, the majority of the teachers are like, I didn't even know, or I wish I had known this, or that's so helpful. And the same with our trauma sensitive schools. We do a lot with that. And I've had one campus in particular I went and did was the pre-K, and they were like, this was life-changing. We had no idea. I talked to them a lot about teachers owning their own trauma and how that interferes with our interactions with students sometimes. And I've had a lot of them ask me to come back to talk more about that because they realize how impactful that is to their students. So yeah, we've gotten really good response from both of those trainings. That it's been hugely helpful for them and their with kids.
Nice. That's super important. I also want to point out one other thing you said as well. So on day one of our ABC Summit, we were very much so focused on like that tier 1 universal instruction. And one of the things you mentioned just now is that if you are able to have like some very good, very solid tier 1 for that 80% of students, right? You'll be able to free up time and capacity for those of us that are working on tier 3 and intensive instruction as well, right? I definitely want to uplift that and highlight what you said on in that perspective as well. So you did do a great job of answering my question, no worries. And I actually want to pass it over to Dr. Craddick and Ms. Dora Maria Ramirez to talk a little bit about SCAN again. And so this question is for both of you, so feel free to chime in as you will. But you all, of course, like during your presentation, you laid out a few different programs that have been sustained throughout the 32 years of your partnership, or throughout it. So the question I actually want to ask you two is the partnership between SCAN and Laredo ISD has existed for an astonishing 32 years again, right? So what have been, in your eyes, the most important elements for actually sustaining such a long-lasting partnership?
Okay, well, I'll go first, and then I'll let Dora and Rosina jump in. So, I mean, it's like what Rosina said, it's about friendships, not just this collaborative relationship. It's really about forging, and I talked about in my opening, it's about that strong support from the direct service staff. But I'm a little biased here. I'm a professional counselor, and so I think that the real key has, over the years, has been the relationships that we forged with counselors within the district. Because one of the things that we've noticed, and Rosina is a great example of this, but there's many others. We have relationships with school counselors, for over 25 years, many, because we notice that the school counselors tend to stay in the field, and they also tend to stay, for the most part, at certain schools. They really like a school and they stay there. And in my head right now, I'm thinking of 3 different counselors. In fact, our coalition just awarded, we call it our Nuestro Orgullo, our Pride Award, to 2 counselors within LISD. Dora, it was Melissa Sanchez, right? And
Judy Puig.
Judy Puig, and they're at Ryan Elementary School, for an example. They've been there for years and years, but it's those kind of relationships matter because the administration at the schools tends to change. The principals move. If they're at an elementary school, they often move on to the middle school, and then they move on to the high school. But the counselors tend to stay. And so what we've learned is that if we have those relationships with the counselors, and we've been able to show them how we can be a tremendous support to them and the students, then when new principals come in, they very much are great advocates for us and the work that we do, because many times the new principals have never heard of SCAN, or they don't know, or they've heard of us, They have no idea that we're working with that school or what we do and how we can be a support. So they really facilitate that process. So my advice to be with any nonprofits that are on today, it really is the relationships with the school counselors. And that to me is, so Dora, and I don't know if you want to add to that, or Rosina.
Rosina, do you
Yeah, I
wanna
want to, well, I was going to say, Dora and your staff have created wonderful professional developments at no cost to the district. And so you all come over and train all our counselors. And as Dr. Craddick said, you know, our counselors do stay put at their campuses. And so they know the programs, and it's just a constant renewal of the MOU. Every summer they present, the board has to assign an MOU with SCAN to allow them to come into our campuses. So it's been renewed for all of these years. And again, we are so excited about them coming in. As you know, school counselors, Jessica, you know, can attest to this. We are limited as far as there's so much on our plates, especially right now, where these agencies like SCAN can come in and help us provide therapy, because we're not therapists, we're academic school counselors, but that they can come and provide these services to our children. We feel that our children are being taken care of. We've opened the doors. We have offices for them, or a little corner in the library for them. We make sure that they feel safe, they feel comfortable, and the child feels comfortable at talking to them. Make things, you know, the child oftentimes thinks that they are employees of the district because they are there so often. So we love that with that. And that's a secret, ladies and gentlemen. Provide a location for them. I know where space is limited, and yet provide a location for them. And yeah, there's a comment, we are mental health school counselors. We can and do provide, absolutely, we do provide mental health services, but we're not therapists. So again, we going back to the school, the mental health first aid, we were presented that grant in 2014. I'm excited to say I'm one of the trainers. There are 14 trainers in our district, and we have trained over of our 4,000 employees, we have trained about 1,800 employees, all coaches, all band members, all band directors, cafeteria workers, police, everybody and then teachers from the classroom. So we pray that that Dr. Craddick goes and that go ahead and they are granted that, because that will just increase more trainers, and we can go ahead and service more individuals.
Thank you. Dora, you want to add on to that as well?
I just want to say that it's so true, having a space, but I think it's the persistent of when a door closes, you just keep looking for something else. You know, I myself kept looking, you know, I would always go to Rosina's office as a counselor when she was a counselor there. And if she wasn't available, I would go to the next counselor. If that wasn't available, I would go to the next counselor. And then I would say, give me a closet, you know, anywhere I can go. So it was that persistency, the ongoing, making sure that people were aware that SCAN's available, because it doesn't matter. We've been in existence for so many years, almost 40 years. Yet I feel that we have to always be doing outreach and letting the community know we're here, free services, like Rosina said. And it's just knowing that you're available. You know, people can call you and they ask you, can you do a presentation? But in Spanish? Yes, of course. Can you do a presentation in English? Yes. Can you do a text mix? Of course I can, right? So we try to be but more importantly, I think we've always respected the school in the sense of, like Rosina said, we go to the board to get approval first by the superintendent. Once the superintendent gives us the approval for the MOU, then individually we go to each principal and we ask them permission. Would you allow us to come to your school? Because even though it comes from the superintendent, we're coming to their house. So by giving them that openness of saying, hey, would you give me permission to do the services? They're free and I'm going to do it during health ed. It's like, really? Yes. And they sign our MOU. So I think, again, going back to who's there, counselors are your best avenue, truant officers, principals, get to know your principals, let them know you're available. And always I give my phone number, my cell number, my business cards everywhere I go so that I can always be at reach. But thank you all very much.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Ms. Silva, as well, for releasing the cat out of the bag and spilling the beans about having a place, right, in the campus. Especially if you're looking to build out community partnerships, right? If you want to have services like on your campus, it'll be very, very helpful to have a space, right? Fun fact as well, you all learned in day one about Project Aware. That is a part of our components with Project Aware too, is some of our specialists. They have a space on the campuses that they serve as well. Another thing I also want to point out to Dora and Dora, you mentioned as well about some of the legwork that you do in terms of establishing these partnerships, right? So going to the board to do an MOU and then doing the legwork, kind of like also what Dr. Craddick said, meeting the principals and meeting the counselors. I want to again go back to something that Dr. Fikash said during some of our health, mental wellness and leadership training throughout this as well, is that, the work that we do is hard work, but it is also heart work as well. So you being able to like do that legwork is very important, and exactly what Dr. Craddick mentioned as well, right? He didn't necessarily mention relationships. He said, we're building friendships out there. You're bringing humility into the work that you're doing as well to establish and build out these partnerships. So I definitely want to highlight that and show appreciation for that as well. And I want to kick this next one, or actually I'll stay with you, Ms. Silva, with this next question again, referring to SCAN, your partnership with SCAN and ESC1 and some of the trainings that they may offer. Essentially what I want to ask you is, how are those trainings and those services that SCAN is offering, how have they been helpful for you? And also, if you're able to share even like a success story from a student or family, of course, keeping it confidential, but if you're able to share a success story at all, that'd be phenomenal for the audience to hear as well.
Absolutely. The success stories, there's so many. They come in, they help, they work with the entire family. I'll give you a story. There is a homeless shelter near our non-traditional high school. And there were two boys that didn't have a home. Well, SCAN put them up in Arcoiris, which is the shelter. These boys were able to complete their credits, graduate from high school. And it was so interesting because at the graduation ceremony, it just so happened accidentally, those two boys ended up walking together at the same time. And when they met, they hugged each other and they turned around and looked at the director or the principal from the non-traditional high school. And you could see the tears streaming down. Despite all the hardships, I mean, I think that is one of the most, I still get goosebumps when I remember seeing their faces. Despite all the hardships, SCAN was there to provide something that we as a district could not possibly provide. And here, these children were given an opportunity for a better life, having the high school diploma and then going on to hopefully junior college or a CTE type of school. So that's one of the ways that we have, that's one of the many success stories that I can think of.
Right, I appreciate that as well. And one of the things you just mentioned, Ms. Silva, is you all didn't have the capacity to really support the students the way you would have wanted to, right?
Right.
But then going back to the point that we made throughout throughout our summit is that, you know, schools can't do it themselves, but you are showing that schools don't have to do it themselves as well.
We don't.
I definitely appreciate you shining a light on that. I will kick it over this next question to Ms. Jessica Villacobo from ESC1. I just want to ask you really quickly, what have been some of the most pressing needs around Tier 3 or just in general for school mental health in the districts that you are serving in that region? And then also, how are you or your team, how have you all been able to work with the partners to address those issues?
So basically, if you can see from the needs assessment survey where our LEAs are requesting more training and professional development and resources is in the anxiety and depression in adolescents and youth. And this is where our current goal in providing resources is targeted as of now. We're reaching out to a local psychologist, and she will be conducting professional development for our staff. And you know, empowering our school staff, our mental health providers within our schools with strategies on how to assist youth and students on how to manage anxiety and depression when while they're at school, and also how to refer them. Not only that, we're also tapping this resource to provide a training for parents. The key component here is the parents seeking, assistance from a clinician and for their child. So again, this is another resource that we're going to be tapping into, making sure we do a parent outreach component as well.
I appreciate that, right? Like also focusing in, again, going back to like, what are the needs of the district? You know, what are the gaps that need to be filled? And the point that you just made as well, right? A lot of our districts, a lot of our campuses do need a little bit more support around even engaging families, especially around mental health, which can often be a topic that folks can be a little bit scared of and have stigma around it. But you are out there doing the work to reduce that stigma and engage with families and partners. So I definitely appreciate that. So I will, this last question will be for every single one of you. So I will I will pose the question, and then I'll call you by name to go ahead and answer the question. This is your chance. We have a wealth of knowledge on this panel and this group, right? And this is your chance to give some like parting words of wisdom and drop some nuggets, release some secrets like Ms. Silva has already done. So the question is, do you have any final words of guidance or wisdom in establishing, nurturing, and maintaining lasting partnerships to support school-based mental health systems? And I'll go ahead and start off with Ms. Kim Pruitt.
So I can say, again, stressing partnering and building counselor collaboratives. That's something that's really strong here with Region 6, as we have worked to build based on counselor request, some counselor leadership collaboratives, either by county or by area. For example, Montgomery County, bringing a group of counselor leaders together who share information that's working well for them. And then, of course, then they trickle out. We're also seeing that those counselor leaders are bringing, for example, one school district will gather their school counselors and go visit the other school district so that they can share ideas and see what's happening and their successes and maybe some frustrations. Again, it's that support system. I strongly believe that building, again, I keep going back to relationships because I think that's the foundation of everything that any of us do. And like Stephanie said, friendships, we have built friendships with these counselor leaders and have consistent requests of saying, hey, can we build an additional counselor leadership group? Instilling leadership within school counselor roles, professional school counselors on school campuses, finding out what their strengths are, really allowing them to lead forward and do what they're most gifted at. And that, again, is working with parents, students, staff, families, and beyond. And again, we've talked a lot on here also about roles of school counselors, and it stems beyond those those brick walls that we all gather in each day, and really ensuring that our counselors within our region know that there are strengths among themselves, and bringing together. I know that we've talked about collective care many times this year through some of our professional learning communities, and that collective care goes beyond, again, stressing that collaboration. That's my answer.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll pass it over to Dr. Craddick as well to answer the same question. What are some words of wisdom or parting advice partnerships?
Okay, and I'm going to speak to this from the perspective of the nonprofit social service agencies. Okay, when I started my presentation today, I said it was an honor and privilege to be able to talk to you today about the collaboration that we have, our agency SCAN, with LISD. One of the things that we instill in all of the employees that we have that work with any school district, because we work with many school districts and those different counties that I talked about, but we instill the fact that it's an honor and privilege for you to be able to go onto the campuses and work at those schools and work with those students. And you have to be respectful when you're on the campus, but we need to do what we say we're going to do. And also to make sure that there's backup. And Dora's on today with us. It's great. So Dora's a great example. She oversees 2 programs. When her staff are not available during COVID, during times when people were out sick for extended periods of time, the directors step in and provide those services. So Dora's done that, and Dora's been here longer than I have, and she still steps in. You have to have that kind of attitude in the employees, because it is an honor and privilege to work at the schools. And when everybody understands that, then I think that creates that synergy and the cooperative, feeling that needs to take place to make it work.
Thank you, Dr. Craddick. Dora, Dr. Craddick has showed you so much love in his answer. It's only right that I pass it over to you next.
Oh my goodness, Dr. Craddick. Let me see if I can add, if I can be able to add to that. But thank you. I really, really appreciate it. But for me, it has always been the consistency of being able to be there for the schools, the resources that we're able to provide for them, and then knowing our limitations. If I cannot provide it, if one of my programs cannot provide it, any of our agencies programs cannot provide it, I'm definitely going to be referring them out, because we're not afraid of letting other people know, hey, this is a need, this is who you need to go to, these are the resources, because you have to walk their shoes. I always tell my staff, I train my staff, before you refer someone, you have to make sure that phone number is working, what is required, because you don't know what that person has to go through. And so I want to make sure that they walk the shoes. And like Dr. Craddick says, I started as a prevention specialist, so I know I love doing direct services. As a program director, I have to pull back. But I was so happy when I opened cases and I was doing what they're doing, because it teaches me what my staff goes through. The fact that you have to document, the fact you have to have an up-to-date database, the fact that you have to submit a monthly report. You are accountable for everything. And like Dr. Craddick says, I'm accountable for those families, the people that I work with. And so if I, for some reason, cannot offer a full support, a full spectrum of continuum of care, I'm going to find those resources that they need, and I'm going to do it first by calling, by finding out, reaching out to Rosina and asking her, hey, by any chance, do you know any of these programs that are available? Reaching out to CIS, reaching out to our mental health, our local, our clinics, finding out what it is and what's free. I'm always asking, what's free? Give me free, and if it's free, I'm going to tell people it's free. Go get this services. So it's always sharing, letting them know, let the community know what's out there in the community, what's available this month, this week, that's going on, and so that they know that they can go access those services.
Thank you, Dora. And then Jessica, you're next up. Parting words of wisdom or advice.
My advice for everyone here, when seeking out partnerships or collaborations, don't hesitate, don't hold back. I've learned from that. We have our ESC partners or departments within our ESCs. We have other ESCs within our state. We have 19 other ESCs. Reach out. I can assure you, we're all in this together. We all have a common goal, and that's for the success of all of our students. So do not hold back. Don't hesitate. Don't think twice. Reach out. And for me, I've been very fortunate that every time I reach out, everyone has been very supportive and willing to assist.
I appreciate that, right? Like you might, if you're at a campus or a district, you might not know how to set up a system or how to create something or how to get the services somebody needs or a student needs. But given that you have an ESC, an LMHA, community partners, you do have a who that can be able to do that for you. So I definitely appreciate that. Stephanie, you as well, your parting words of wisdom for nurturing partnerships.
So a lot of my approach comes from my experience when I was in the schools, and I want to be what I needed when I was in there, right? So for one thing, I love my job. This is an absolute dream come true. I tell my boss every day, like, thank you so much for this opportunity. I literally made a slide where I put my face on Mickey, and I call it my Mickey mentality. And I told everyone, I'm here to make your mental health mandates magical. And that is my goal. I want for when they are in need and they say, this is what I need, that I'm like, I got you with a smile on my face. We're going to find it. I may not have it, but I will find it. And that is how I approach everything. I want anyone that comes to me to leave with, I got what I needed. And not only did I get it, I knew who to talk to. I knew where to call. It wasn't just, hey, yeah, call this. And I think that that has been what has allowed me to create new partnerships as well, because people that I've worked with will then say, hey, I don't know where that is, but you can call Stephanie and she'll find it for you. And that really is like one of my favorite parts of my job is knowing that somebody got what they needed, whether it was me or something I could find. So having that Mickey Mouse mentality, like, how can I make your day magical?
Hey, I'm definitely going to put that one in my little toolbox of phrases, making mandates magical. I like that. I like that a lot. Last but certainly not least, of course, it is very fitting for our last panelist of the ABC Summit to be somebody that is boots on the ground, leading district campus wellness and SEL and all of that good stuff. Ms. Rosina Silva, what are your parting words of advice for nurturing those strong partnerships?
Okay, be involved in your community. If you are invited to any sort of coalition, go to those meetings. I serve on boards and coalitions with communities and schools. I sit on, I'm invited to meet with our fire department, with our police department. We form those relationships. And let me tell you, right before the holidays, I needed the police to go to my house, not for me, but to help me with a crisis that a child was going through. But it's important to be involved in your community, because the more people you know, the more access you have to everything that they provide. And then just this morning, we were at a meeting at a conference, and we formed a new partnership with the Border Patrol. So now they're wanting to come and take our youth mental health classes that we offer on Mondays. And we're going to see where that partnership goes. So every opportunity you have your card in your wallet, in your purse, and give it out there. And don't be afraid. Advocate for your kids. Advocate for your school district. Be proud of where you work at. And, you know, as the saying goes, if you love what you do, you will never work a day in your life. So I've had 37 years of bliss, a couple of days that are a little challenging, but other than that, I have had a blast. So whatever I can do for anyone, God bless you all. Stay well, be out there, and appreciate everyone for what they do, because like I said at the very beginning, they make my life so much easier. And thank you so much for being an amazing audience.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. If you're in the audience, give them a round of applause. If you're on our panel, pat yourselves on the back. I just want to say thank you to all of you who have given some great insight on how we can continue to build and nurture strong partnerships within our communities and around the state. This concludes this session.